G'day legends, I hope that you are having a fantastic day. Now today's video, we're going to talk about the news, we're going to look at the maps, but we're also going to speak a fair bit about politics. As you know, there's a hell of a lot going on with Hungary, with Russia, with Ukraine, with the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland as well. So we're going to go into some things that are happening there, Slovakia and Hungary, the EU as a whole. So we'll be fairly wordy, I guess, in the middle of this video, and I do apologize for that. And the movements on the front have been fairly limited over the past week, and we'll also look at the intel update about those movements. But we got this from Fighter Bomber. So over the past two videos, we've spoken about the two Russian aircraft, one that was badly damaged, one that was taken down, and I guess the fallout from that. How did this actually happen? Now, with Russian aircraft losses, Fighter Bomber is really good to, I guess, get a confirmation on exactly what is happening. So this was shared today. In today's 333, we will try to answer the question about the attack on 3 of our aircraft in the Sea of Azov. The question is quite logical. We'll answer any way we'll try. According to my information, the crests have nothing to do with the loss of the A-50 aircraft, the crests here referring to Ukraine. And I really hope that this time the Commission for the Analysis of the Disaster will not fuck the pilots for weather reports and will not require signatures in the logs for checking the logs. It should not fuck the pilots at all, but the direct culprits of the tragedy. 11, according to other sources, 12 military pilots died. So, somewhere between 11 and 12 crew members and pilots have been killed in this strike. In the Northern Military District, unfortunately, the worst and most dangerous enemy for the aerospace forces has become our air defense. And this is what we've seen. We've seen this argument of, was it the air defense that took down these, or was it Ukrainian air defense and missiles that has taken down these? And there's still some speculation in this. It always hits you in the back, meaning air defense going up and hitting the aircraft. It is impossible to protect against it or somehow provide for it to take it into account. But something needs to be done about this. No one is to blame. This is a coincidence. Will not work here. So saying that there needs to be some really tough questions answered as to what happened here and getting a bit of a more confirmation on exactly how many people were killed there. With every bit of information in this war, this is an informational war online, on Telegram, on Twitter, and this is pretty new to a war as far as on the scale of the information that is out there, and you need to take everything with a grain of salt, including me, including this, including any other sources that you see online. And you do need to branch out outside of your echo chambers and outside of your algorithm that creates an echo chamber for you as well to maybe get some differing information. That said, it is still very difficult to get exactly what is happening. I do this full time, and even I get a lot wrong and find it very hard to see exactly what is happening. Now, tomorrow the European Parliament will vote to strip Hungary of its voting rights at the European Council. Now, this comes as Hungary has blocked a proposed $50 billion package for Ukraine after Hungary left the room to get Ukraine's EU accession talks moving. So what happened basically was that every EU nation needs to vote yes for that accession talk, and if Hungary voted no, then it wouldn't go through. They have veto power in this. Now, what was asked was Germany asked Orban to leave the room. Everyone voted yes. Part of the ruling was that if someone is there, their vote can be considered, can be not considered, and then it moved through. So then it pushed through there. So Hungary didn't vote for or against, and that's when that then moved through. But on the same event, this was a few months ago, we saw that Hungary then vetoed the $50 billion. Now, the resolution is calling on the European Council to strip Hungary of its voting rights under Article 7.2 the EU treaty. So let's have a look at what Article 7 actually is here and when it's been used against Hungary before. So Article 7 of the Treaty of European Union is a procedure in the Treaty of the EU to suspend certain rights of a member state. While rights can be suspended, there is no mechanism to expel a state of the Union. We've seen a lot of people requesting that Hungary will be expelled. Hungary's not going to be expelled. The procedure covered in Article 7, it would be enacted where fellow members identify another member is persistently breaching the EU's founding values: respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, including the rights of persons belonging to minorities. And this has been raised against Hungary before, but in this democracy, this is what people are calling out of the use of this. So Article 7.2, this is what they're holding against Hungary. In the event of a serious and persistent breach, the country does not heed the Council's guidance, then the Commission or 1/3 of countries approved by a 2/3 majority in Parliament, so they need a majority for this to go through, calls the country to answer to the European Council again. The European Council must then decide unanimously to proceed to Article 7.3. Once the European Council has unanimously decided that a breach is still occurring, the Council then votes by qualified majority to suspend rights of the accused country, including voting rights within the Council, until all duties are fulfilled. So it would take away Hungary's ability to veto this further going along. Now, this is when we've seen this used against Hungary multiple times in the past 10 years, although it hasn't really gone through from a lot of my reading. 2015, European Parliament asked the Commission to present a proposal for starting a mechanism against Hungary, the rule of law in the country, voted down the proposal against Hungary over treatment of migrants. In 2018, voted against Hungary of EU values, as well then in 2024, the old spicy flu bill that's gone there, but as we've seen, no one will ever answer for anything that happened in that period. Now, obviously, this has received a hell of a lot of backlash, with a lot of commentators questioning the democracy of this system. People saying the whole point of having this is that people have differing opinions and can veto decisions as they see. But we've spoken before about the problem with this, the problem with NATO, the UN, the EU, is if one of these countries can veto it, you'll never get anything done. And this is the way, I guess, out around this. Now, is this undemocratic? Is it just a system in place for having a rogue country in it? That is, I guess, up to you to answer. But the Slovakian Prime Minister, Robert Fico, declared his support for Hungary, saying Slovakia would fight potential measures to restrict Hungary's EU rights, saying, as long as I'm the head of the Slovak government, I will never agree with punishing a country for fighting for its sovereignty. I will never agree with such an attack on Hungary. Remember, Slovakia is also an EU member. Now, he's also copped a hell of a lot of criticism online for suggesting the Ukrainian war has no military solution and that Russia supposedly will maintain military control over Donetsk and Luhansk. Robert Fico has been very outspoken in this war as well. And there are bits that I vehemently disagree with, and there's also bits where I can see his reasoning and see where he's coming from. I think have a look into some, not only just little quotes, but look at his full write-ups on it, and you need to take it with an open mind as well. He also says, he only said this yesterday with the Hungarian Prime Minister, let's find some other method to solve this problem. But if someone thinks that investing the 50 billion euros and sending hundreds of new units of weaponry, we will solve something, then we will solve nothing. I'm a Slav, and it hurts me that Slavs are killing each other. Now, I want to look at some interesting bits that he came out with actually on the 9th of January as well. Now, the West will take advantage of Russia's violation of international law, supplying Ukraine with piles of weapons, billions of dollars, load Russia with massive sanctions, attack Russia's main mineral income, and expect the Ukrainian soldier down to the last to bring him the Russian bear's head on a platter in the form of a militarily exhausted, economically ruined, and internationally isolated and internally politically subverted Russia. So saying here that they're using Ukraine basically to bring down Russia and taking advantage of the violations Russia has had to then push through this. This was and unfortunately is still the Western strategy, which I openly say at home and abroad that still does not work, that it has failed, and I don't even agree with her. I'm not one of the Slovak politicians who are happy that Slovakia, the Russian Federation, is being made a mortal enemy. You can look up this full speech here as well. Now, it is shocking to me that the West has repeatedly erred in assessing the situation in Russia. The facts are inexorable. Russia completely controls the occupied territories militarily. Neither the Russian economy nor the Russian currency collapsed. Anti-Russian sanctions increase the internal self-sufficiency of this huge country. Russian energy giants report record deliveries to China and India. There are bits in this I disagree with. There's the bits that I agree with, and there's also bits that I can see where he's coming from. And this is why, with all this, I really say you should reach out and have a look at what some other people are saying, even if you disagree with it, just to broaden your horizon on how other people are seeing this war. Now, Robert Fico, he's very, very popular in Slovakia, at least by the polls and his terms as well. Now, EU chief Ursula von der Leyen at the World Economic Forum says the aid package to Ukraine will be approved with or without Hungary. My personal priority is to have an agreement by 27 countries, so all 27 countries of the EU. And if this is not possible, we're prepared for an agreement by 26. So it will be very interesting to see where this goes, especially as Slovakia is in here as well. But it should be noted, Slovakia can't veto the decision against Hungary getting its voting rights taken away. Now, Putin has had an appearance on TV as well, saying not only has their counteroffensive failed, but the initiative is entirely in the hands of the Russian armed forces. If this continues, Ukraine's statehood could be dealt an irreparable, very serious blow. And we have a translated video here of Putin in this same speech as well.
As for the negotiation process, it is an attempt to make us refuse those gains we have achieved for the last 1.5 years.
So the negotiation process, him saying that it is an attempt to say we'll bring back those gains, because of course the negotiation process where Ukraine has said to even start negotiating, Russia would have to give back the 91 borders, and therefore from Putin's perspective he's saying to even start that, take away what he says they have achieved.
It is impossible. Everyone understands it is impossible, and they, the Ukraine ruling circles, understand it, and Western elites understand it. Everyone understands.
So you can actually look up this whole interview as well, what was said. Now, the Kremlin does post a full written excerpt of what exactly was said, but in Australia I can't get onto that website at all anymore, so I can only pull out the quotes that I can see through other media and Twitter and bits and pieces as well. But again, it's interesting just to listen and read, and as far as broadening your horizon on this and what is going on, that Ukraine's saying that their negotiation process, their peace process, is first and foremost reliant on 91 borders. Putin is going completely against that, saying that we don't want to give up an inch of that land. Therefore, the war will continue. The war has to then continue for Ukraine to push back through, or wherever the war will go. And we are unsure exactly where that will go. Now, let's look at what Germany has said today from Olaf Scholz, of course, the Chancellor. President Biden and I agree. We want to continue to provide Ukraine with financial, humanitarian and military support. Today I spoke with POTUS Biden on the phone. Germany is providing more than 7 billion euros in military goods in 2024, and this sits outside of that 50 billion proposed by the EU over 4 years, outside of the EU's already budget. So there are some interesting bits and pieces happening in here. Now, let's have a look at the maps. Now, firstly, let's start with then the MOD update. Over the last week, neither Russian nor Ukrainian forces have taken any significant ground. Despite progress in late December 23 in capturing Mariinka, Russia has been unable to capitalize and advance either westwards towards Kharkov or towards Novomakhalivka. We're going to talk about this today. The encirclement of Avdiivka likely remains Russia's key line of effort. However, to date, Russia has made very limited territorial gains at a significant cost in both material and personnel. The northern town, Stepove, remains under Ukrainian control, which secures access to the Avdiivka supply route. Russian attempts to isolate the town are unlikely for at least the next week. Ukrainian Marines continue to maintain their bridgehead at Krinky on the eastern bank of the Dnipro. Despite Russian attempts to dislodge them, they will highly likely continue to contest this territory for the next week. So, of course, Krinky down on the left bank of the Dnipro, that small, very important bridgehead for Ukraine. But, of course, very small area. They're getting absolutely hammered with the glide bombs, with artillery. But from the right bank, Ukraine can hammer the Russians, trying to dislodge them there as well with their own artillery, and further back things like HIMARS as well. So let's talk about Stepove, Avdiivka in here. So we're just coming, let's actually have a look at where we bloody are. So this is the Syriac Google map. So here we have Ukraine and Russia around here. Of course, the red and yellow areas which are occupied. Now, on this map, it doesn't show Crimea as occupied. It does show the border down here as Russia, but this should be read as occupied down here as well. Now, if we come up into Avdiivka, here we have then Stepove here. So definitely getting very, very close to Russia taking over that and opening the supply route still down into Avdiivka here. But there hasn't been really much change around here. And that bridgehead we are talking about is, of course, down in here near Krinky. So see these blocks here and the amount of land in the trees out here too. But then let's have a look where we need to then talk about Novomaglivka. They spoke about this, and we have seen that Russia made a bit of ground here over the past 24 hours. So this was from Surak, and these are the only map updates that we have. Situation southwest of Donetsk. So we're talking just in this region here. Advance between 1 to 1.3 kilometers southwest of Novomaglivka have located now 5 k's from the T05 road, this being this road here, and this paddock here was the area that Russia, it's saying that Russia has made. Now, this is an important area. Now, I believe this is where Russia, in this area between Mariinka, this is where Russia has got late 23, the capture of Mariinka, and they're trying to close this gap. This road is supplying a lot of supply through Ugledar, Vodani, Novomaglivka. They're trying to advance up and cut off somewhat through Ugledar, where we know Russia had massive losses, up through Polbeda into Mariinka. So cut off this bridge, sort of, or not bridgehead, but this area here. As we know, Ukraine can get a lot of supply into these areas, and they're pushing hard on Novomaglivka, failed on the south, and we're saying that the axis is changing back into the north. So let's have a look at where exactly this is. So the area gained only the last 24 hours was this paddock in here. Now, we're not north up, so I can show you, but it is this area here. And you can see where Ugledar through to Mariinka is placed. It is very flat ground out here overall, and trying to get then up to this T05 road and have dominance in this area, closing up and shortening the front line. One of the biggest problems that Russia has is the sheer length of the front line and the dispersion of troops then across it. So let's then have a look in the Kremenar forest. So if we zoom out from here, we're just going to go north. Here's Avdiivka, then here's Bakhmut, and then we're talking this forest area up in here. Now, you don't see too much movement in here. We see a lot of forward and back, but there's a hell of a lot of fighting going on here in the forest. Now, I can't show you this video. I'll chuck this on my Telegram if you wish to watch it, but we have some Ukrainian troops here in contact, and you can just see, this is in the Kremenar forest, how this forest then looks. Frozen earth, snow everywhere, trees. These trees here, these aren't as blown out as you'll see in this area. There are areas where it's just blown out sticks in the ground. So a hell of a lot of heavy fighting going on very close in there. Situation on the Lugansk front. Russian army made small advances in the forest southwest of Kremenar as troops are trying to expel Ukrainian army from the southern positions. In addition, minimal advance was made in the northeastern outskirts of Bielorivka. Bielorivka, let's sit down here, is where we saw on the deep state map yesterday that Russia had a very small advance in there. Nothing too much to really speak of, and they're saying that just in here, which just sits just in this part in here, is where Russia had an advance in here. One thing is, in these heavily wooded area, it reduces the effectiveness of armoured vehicles, therefore has more trench warfare, so you're dug in, what then reduces the effectiveness again of artillery and increases the effectiveness of how bloody close you are and small arms fire. So the actual battle here is much, much closer in these wooded areas than we see on other areas of the front line, like we talked about down in the south around, I guess, Matyinka, Novomalivka, where we have these broad open fields there. The more dense the terrain, the closer the warfare then becomes. Now, Legends, that is, I believe, everything. I hate when I miss something and I'm like, oh, I have to put it in afterwards. But I hope that you're having a fantastic day. Thank you for all your support. As always, I do really appreciate it. If you'd like to support me further, links down below. You can get some Willy's Wanker merch. I'm still saying the best merch on YouTube, the Willy's Wanker group. But otherwise, look after yourselves. Have a great end of the week. And I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye-bye.